Hey everybody, and welcome to Rabbit's Ramblings, podcast 422. I don't have much to say this time. I have a free month of Game Pass, and so I had been saving that up, and I am peeking at Avowed and Atomfall, and so I have a few thoughts on both of those, but that's really it for this time. Hopefully you'll enjoy the show.
Good fighting.
So Avowed released a few months ago, and the reviews have been pretty mixed. I had been keeping my eyes on that since its first announcement, because people were saying, oh, it's a Skyrim-like game, and it's going to be awesome. And it pretty much is, and kind of isn't. I was actually pleasantly surprised by it. All the reviewers say they liked the combat, but they thought everything else was kind of meh. It is apparently the third game in the Pillars of Eternity series, which I have never played. So there's a lot of lore there that I'm like, I have no idea what that is. But I don't think it's really important. They kind of catch you up on everything pretty quickly. And I guess if you have subtitles turned on, or push the button that shows the conversation as you're going through it, there will be a bunch of words that are highlighted which are, lore specific to that game. But I did like the combat quite a bit, as the reviewers say, but I was also very surprised in that I was kind of very into all of the story and the quest and the people talking about, the various things they're talking about in the conversations. That seemed a lot more interesting than the reviewers made it out to be. The reviewers were kind of like, oh, it's just kind of meh. But I don't know, for some reason, I'm just kind of really into it. I would say it is and is not like Skyrim in the fact that it is like Skyrim in its open world, and it's divided, I think, into 4 big zones. So it's sort of like smaller Skyrim area, because I don't think Skyrim had zones except for, if you went into, this city or that city, it was a zone, but otherwise it was just open world. So in that regard, it might be a little different because you spend your time in the one zone, and then when you've finished all the quests there, you move on to the next zone. Although, I guess you can go back if you want to check vendors and do other things. But it's not infinite content. So once you've cleared out a base of bad guys, I'm pretty sure they never respawn. So it's not Skyrim-like in that regard, because I'm pretty sure in Skyrim they would always, just respawn after a while. But it is, I think, not like Skyrim, because I would say it's probably a pretty decent mix between spending time in combat and spending time exploring and spending time talking to companions sometimes, or, a lot of NPCs will have a pretty big dialogue about what they need you to do and history of what they're doing and why they're doing it. And so it's unlike Skyrim in that there is all that conversation. But I don't know. I've gotten quite into it once I got over the fact that it kind of feels like it's a 15-year-old game in some ways, because those systems really aren't any different than, games of 15 years ago that were like that. But, the graphics are new and shiny, and the world looks really beautiful, and it's quite varied in the different locations of where you're going. And like I said, the combat is really good. I have a good time with it. And I don't know, I might actually wind up picking it up on Steam and continuing to play it after my free month is over, because I don't know if I'll actually finish it. People say it only takes 25 hours to blow through the campaign, but I think I'm already almost at 25 hours in my save file, and I'm just kind of starting the second of 4 zones. So I don't know, it seems like it's going to have a lot more playtime than I expected. The next thing I was saving this free month of Game Pass for was Atomfall. And Atomfall had been sort of advertised as a Fallout, but done in Britain and based on some real-world events that happened in the late 50s. There was a really terrible nuclear disaster, and so it's sort of based on a, alternate world version of what happened there. And I don't know if I would really recommend this. Certainly not above $40 if you're going to buy it. I would even recommend waiting until maybe more like $30, because it is cool and interesting, but it's also kind of not. It's kind of like, I would say, a good first attempt, but it's definitely got its flaws. And I think I'm only about 8 hours in, and I would guess I'm probably about 75% done. The reviews I've watched of it say it took them between 8 and about 12 hours to 100% it, so there's not a whole lot of it there. But basically, it is Fallout-like in that there is an open world, and you're going around this area, and you're picking up various stuff to scavenge, and you have limited inventory space, so you want to be careful. You don't want to take too much stuff you don't need, but you do want to take stuff you might want to trade to the few NPC traders that are around. But it's also kind of not, because there is this overarching mystery, and so you're doing a lot of figuring out what's going on. You get these things called leads, which will point you towards a location, and then you investigate what that lead says. And so there's a lot of sort of mystery elements to it, similar to what I'd say they are doing in Control. But there are also elements that are just kind of bland and not done really well. Like, the open areas are open, but part of that is there's just nothing going on. So you'll be running around and running around and running around, and there's like nothing there to do. So that seems really weird. And then other areas will get really incredibly dense. Like, some areas they send you to for a lead, you'll be like, where am I supposed to go? There's so many buildings here. The lead doesn't tell you where to go. And then another bad thing that I really disliked is that there are just so many enemies. If you get caught, they will just basically flood in from seemingly nowhere, and then the AI is really dumb. It will just kind of run straight at you. So I didn't see much point in fighting these big masses of bad guys. Thankfully, there are like 4 different difficulty settings on 3 different categories. One is combat, one is survival, and one is exploration. And after those first couple of hours of being really frustrated and finding a lot of issue with the game, I decided to turn down combat and exploration to what they call casual, which is the setting just below the recommended setting. And then the bad guys still come out in pretty big number. There will be anywhere between 3 and 6 guys that are in a group, which still seems absurd. But it calmed down their aggression, so they don't see me quite as easily, and they don't come running at me out of nowhere. It's like I'll usually, get some kind of warning before they're coming at me. And then with exploration on casual, it will give you a waypoint indicator for your leads, so you're not completely going nowhere. It doesn't quite point directly straight at the person until you're, really up close, so you are still exploring and you are still figuring things out. But it certainly is much better to get a lead that says, meet so-and-so in this area, and then you're like, okay, well, I can see that area on the map, with or without the pointer on there. But then, when you get there, you have, pretty good idea of where they are, instead of like, oh my god, I'm going to spend half an hour wandering around trying to find this person, which I don't see how that's interesting. Some people might find it interesting, but before I had turned that on, I got a lead that said go to XY coordinates on the map, and I went to those exact coordinates, and I did not find the thing I was looking for. I spent like 15-20 minutes looking for it, and I said, oh my god, this is dumb. And then I turned the setting down, so I got a waypoint, and then it's like the waypoint was really far away from where I was. It was basically an airplane hangar building distance away in terms of game size, which is like this is not where the pointer was supposed to be pointing to in the coordinates. So it feels much better on casual setting. But again, it does things well and it does things poorly. And so I would very cautiously recommend that if you're really into this kind of game, definitely check it out on something like Game Pass or, wait for a sale. Because some of the things it does good are really interesting. Like I just did a quest the other night where it was basically a murder mystery, and I found one lead that pointed towards person A, and then I found another lead somewhere else that pointed towards person B. And so it's like, A is blaming B and B is blaming A. And so it seemed like, depending on my personal preference, I could side one way or the other. So that was really interesting to see which way it would go. But ultimately, these didn't play into the bigger mystery of what's going on, really. It just kind of added world flavor. So it's like, is this really interesting, or is it just sort of adding to world flavor? So again, be cautious. I would say get it if you are really, really, really into the world. But if you're not, and you're like, oh, this looks like an interesting diversion, then, like I said, get it on Game Pass or some other service free, or on deep sale. And that's really all I have for my free things I'm looking at with my Game Pass that I got for free. I might look at Indiana Jones, depending on how quickly I get through these other things. I might also look at South of Midnight. That looks like a cool and interesting game that I probably would not normally pick up for myself, because my wish list is like 30 games long, and so I kind of am being very careful, about which ones I want to buy, because I can usually only afford to get 1 or 2 games a year, which is very sad. So I have to be very careful about that. But that's it for this time. So that's really all that's important. Preludes 9 for Soulframe did finally come out. It added some cool stuff. Now when you start the game, the map is fogged and you have to go to these special trees and heal the trees, and then that reveals the map. And so that's pretty cool. There are 3 factions, but the factions don't really do anything right now. There's only one faction that has a pact at the very, very end of the 5th rank, which most people are struggling to even get through the 1st rank right now. Faction is accumulating very slowly, and everybody's complaining about that. But overall, combat is still pretty much the same. Minor tweaks. If you are playing, you will notice them. If you aren't playing, then it doesn't really matter to talk about them. And there are some other minor changes. They added a few other weapons, and they added a new magic weapon type, which I haven't gotten yet, but it shoots out sort of ring things. So it's a different kind of ranged attack other than bow, which I was not a fan of bow, but they reworked bow, but I haven't looked at it yet. And that's kind of it for stuff I'm doing now. I have a few pretty sad life updates. I guess my eye pokings were not just 3 eye pokings, but series of 3 eye pokings. So I have another appointment at the end of the month, and so then after that, the doctor said he will decide if I need more eye pokings after this, but implied that it could be quite a long time before I'm done completely with eye pokings, if ever. I guess some people, never recover from this, and they do lower it to like 1 eye poking a year, but they're doing it the rest of their life, so that could be very terrible. Also, I got news about my stuff in the X garage, where it is being kept safe, and that I have to get rid of a bunch of it. So that is very stressful and sad, because I'm probably going to have to get rid of 40% or more of what I have, which what I have is pretty much all the essential things left that I would need to recover in a home. So I'm going to have to do things like get rid of all of my kitchen cooking stuff and all of the dishes and all of the glasses. And then I'll probably also have to get rid of all of my stereo stuff. So no more receiver and no more speakers, which are little bookshelf speakers, so they're not even very big. But that'll be very terrible. I mean, if it's just those things, I guess that's survivable, but that's a lot of money that I'm going to have to spend when I can get back in a home to recover those things. And the things I will be getting rid of are so old, they have no value to anyone. So it's not like I can sell them and be like, okay, well, here's the money, and I can put that towards a purchase eventually. No, they're not going to be worth anything. So everything is pretty sad and terrible for me in general lately. And I don't know what I'll talk about next time. I think maybe 3 weeks from now we will be past the end of the month. I'm not totally sure. But that is when the next big patch for No Rest for the Wicked is coming. And that will be very super exciting and hopefully give me lots to talk about then. But that might not be until 2 podcasts because of the timing, and I'll have to actually get in and see what's different. But that's really it for this time. If there's Bunny Day before the next podcast, hopefully everybody will have a good Bunny Day. That is a super fun time. And hopefully I'll see everybody next time. Okay, thanks, bye. Talking about, the various things they're talking about in the conversations, and that seemed a lot more interesting than
You have been listening to Rabbit's Ramblings. If you would like to see the show notes or feed the bunny by sending a donation, you can find the show website at www.rabbit.com/podcast/rabbitsramblings.html. When you type Rabbit's Ramblings, don't use a space. If you would like to send me an email, you can do so at rabbit@rabbit.com. If you like my page, you can also post on Facebook at rabbit.com. You can follow me on YouTube at rabb1t's. I have a page on Patreon at www.patreon.com/rabbit, RABB1T. You can set up a monthly recurring subscription there at a price point of your choice. Be sure to put the number 1 in place of I anytime you type rabbit.
Rabbit's Ramblings is copyright Eric Stryker, using a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Derivatives License 2025.